Hi everyone! It's fall time outside. It's great. The leaves are starting to change colors. They're starting to fall. It's getting cooler. Everyone's getting wrapped up in scarves and blankets and coats. Pumpkin spice lattes are out, teas, loaves, muffins. So I have a junior sour project for you. I've always loved baking. And every fall, I always bake pumpkin chocolate chip muffins for my family and my fiance, except the original recipe isn't exactly the healthiest. So I figured, why not do some research on how to make my muffins healthier, but still make sure they're just as delicious. So I started by digging out my pumpkin chocolate chip muffin recipe, and I shared the recipe with everyone on my blog. And then next, I researched healthy ingredient substitutions that I could incorporate into the muffin recipe to make it healthier, but that would still keep the muffins as yummy as always. Because you know how there's always those baked goods that are healthy, but they taste awful, or they're really actually not that healthy for you. So there were lots of different kinds of healthy ingredient substitutions, but I decided to go with whole wheat flour and unsweetened applesauce. So whole wheat flour contains more fiber than all-purpose flour. All-purpose flour is used in almost all baked goods kinds of recipes, and whole wheat flour positively affects your blood sugar levels, and it contains more vitamins than all-purpose white flour, but it does make baked goods more dense and heavier, so I had to be careful of that when I baked the muffins. So I didn't do completely whole wheat flour. I still used some all-purpose flour, and I shared that in my blog also. So if you want to know the exact ratios I did, it's all in there. And then unsweetened applesauce. So unsweetened applesauce is a great substitute for oil when you're baking. It's cheaper and it makes your baked goods extra moist. They have way more flavor and it's higher in nutrients and fiber. But it's really important to use unsweetened applesauce because sweetened applesauce has a lot of extra unnatural sweeteners, so your sugar, like your fructose sugar levels, are a lot higher. And unsweetened applesauce is actually really sweet on its own. It's just all the natural sugars. So for that reason, I actually decided to cut back on the amount of sugar that I used in the muffin recipe just to compensate for that, so it was a little bit more balanced. And then, the next step of my project was to bake the new and improved pumpkin chocolate chip recipe. And when I bake that recipe, I always triple it so that I can use the whole can of pumpkin as opposed to just using a third of the can and then wasting the other 2/3 of it. Because really, what are you going to do with 2/3 of a can of pumpkin? And it's a lot of muffins, but the muffins freeze really well. Which helps them last way longer, and especially in our household, I know that. They get gobbled up pretty quickly. It's often a fight to see who can get the muffins first before they're gone, because they go fast. So you can keep them in the freezer, and then you can just pull them out and let them thaw on the counter overnight, or in a couple hours. Or if you want a muffin right away, you can put them in the microwave for 30 seconds, and then they thaw out and they're great and they're warm and the chocolate's all melted and it's great. So the baking went really well. I took lots of pictures to document the process along the way, which you can check out on my blog. And of course I taste tested the muffins when they came out of the oven once they cooled down, and they tasted so good. They're great. I asked my family and my fiance to try them, and they all thought they tasted great. So the new and improved recipe is definitely a success. So on the taste test side of things. So then my last step of the project was to look at how healthy those muffins actually are. So I computed the nutritional values of them using Very Well Fit. The link to that is also on my blog if you want to check that out. But so I computed the nutritional values of the original recipe and the healthy ingredient substitution recipe. And the major health difference that I discovered, well, there were 3 of them. So the main one was that the original recipe has almost double the amount of calories as the healthy recipe, just like in one muffin. The total fat, the daily percentage value in the original recipe is more than half of the fat in the healthy recipe. And the total carb, like the total amount of carbs, the daily value of that, the percentage of that in the original recipe is 3% more than the carbs in the healthy recipe. So what's this mean? Well, the new recipe is definitely healthier than the original recipe, and it tastes just as great. This is definitely the recipe that I'm going to use whenever I bake these muffins now. And I think that I would also love to try some of these substitutions in some of my other baked goods recipes. So maybe you'll have to stay tuned for those vlogs in the future.